On today's episode, we get a peek behind the scenes of the music videos for Marana Cross and The Future is a Foreign Land right here, right now on GonstFM Off Air. Welcome, ghouls, ghoulettes, and guesties to GonstFM Off Air, the official podcast companion to 66.6 GonstFM, the radio station dedicated to the band Ghost and the wider Gonst community, broadcasted live once per month on the Stationhead app. I'm your host, Richie, aka Papa X, as so lovingly named by all of you Gonstlings. Today's guests are responsible for bringing you the animated sequence from Rite Here Rite Now, and also the animated music video for The Future is a Foreign Land. So everybody out there, please give a warm welcome to Sean from Awesome and Modest and Ben and Xilia from Soul Proprietor Studios. How y'all doing today?
Doing great.
Yeah, doing great. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So I loved the fact that this was traditional 2D animation, which I think we get lost in 3D so much that I think the 2D aspect goes completely unseen more often than not nowadays. And I first noticed the work not even on this movie. I noticed it on a special about Marvel, and I was like, this is great, because I'm a comic book fan. I'm a big old nerd. So when I found out it was the same, team of people doing this, I was like, aha, that there it is. So how did you guys get linked up? Because I know you probably had separate backgrounds before you started working together. Sean, where did you get started, dude?
Sure. My name's Sean. I'm the director of this Marana Cross video, and I've been working with Ben and Xilia off and on for many, many years. My history, I guess I'll try to wrap it up quickly. I went to NYU for film and directing and took some animation classes too. And then getting out of school, I kind of found animation as like a way to make more of a living, because it's hard to just write and direct your own movies all the time and
Right.
pay for it. So like animation kind of became a thing. Did a lot of music videos actually early on, probably 20 something, and then kind of found this weird niche of documentary animation, which you commented on. We've done like a lot of like Lady in the Dale on HBO. We did all the animation for, and Stamped from the Beginning, which is on Netflix, and all these different docs we kind of got into. But it's been fun now to kind of start to get more into music videos again after like a little bit of a pause on them. And we just did these 2 Ghost videos, and then we did the Kirk Hammett from Metallica video before that, and we did one for this band Volbeat. Volbeat?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, so it's been fun. But yeah, and basically, I guess it was a long question, but Ben and Xilia, I first met. I made this TV show with my friend Alessandro called Jeff and Some Aliens. It was on Comedy Central, and Ben and Xilia were in Portland, and I knew of them because we both had made music videos for, do you know the band Tally Hall? They're an interesting story. They were a band that like had a small following, and then like they broke up, and like 10 years later have become wildly popular by young people on TikTok and all over, even though they're not a band anymore. And so I had made a video for Tally Hall, and then I made a video for Miracle Musical, which was Joe Hawley's like solo project from that. And Ben made a video too for it, which was awesome. And so I remember reaching out to Joe being like, who made that other video? That guy's real talented. And he's like, I'll put you in touch. And it just so happened that he lived in Portland with Xilia at the time, and I lived in Portland making this Jeff and Some Aliens Comedy Central show. And so we needed like some extra help for like bumpers, and we had like a studio full of people, but we had like needed extra people. And I was like, what about Ben? So we reached out to Ben, and I met him. I think I only met you in real life like that one time. Is that true?
That was when we went to that lunch, right?
You talk so much on like streaming and stuff for
yeah. But yeah, I think it was only one time in real life. But then so Ben did this Jeff and Some Aliens promo, and we made these shorts called Trip Tank, which was a Comedy Central show, and we had to. I think I co-wrote and co-directed like 20 something shorts, so it was like too many to animate them all myself, and so Ben and Xilia took on a few of them and did a great job with that. We had one with Jason Alexander in it. That was fun. So yeah, that was like probably in the year, 2000, like we probably started working together 2014.
2014.
Yeah, 2014. So then, but yeah, they're very talented people, and they definitely are very good with the hand-drawn animation. So whenever there's a project that fits in their wheelhouse. It's fun to bring him in and get back into it. And this was a perfect fit. And I think they knew who Ghost was when I first called them, but after we started working on this video, they've become diehard Ghost fans.
It's not hard to fall down the Ghost rabbit hole. Like, seriously, it's really not
so easy. I think we started off, we knew like he is, and we knew a lot of the older songs, and we loved the music, and obviously, with the like new fame on TikTok and stuff, that was cool. But we never really knew about the lore at all. We kind of are always so busy creating content that it's hard for us to always consume content. So then as soon as we got like the info from Sean and, I started like researching, I was like, oh, wait a minute. And I was like, oh, this story is amazing. And I guess getting deeper and deeper into the lore. And I was going to say I would recommend any fan watch all the videos back to back, look at all the poster artwork, and look at all the, like, there's stuff that people haven't talked about that's in, I don't want to give anything away because I don't know if it's true or not, but there's stuff I would definitely say for people to look into that maybe some people haven't seen yet.
Yeah, that's the best part is all the Easter eggs, because
Yep.
I think, as we all know, Tobias is a humongous film dork, like really is. And I say that as lovingly as possible because same. And so seeing, works like King Kong for like Majesty, and then like A Clockwork Orange, Rosemary's Baby for the Zenith cover, things like that. It kind of gives you a peek into how that man thinks. And with you guys, Xilia, Ben, with your background, how did you start with Soul Proprietor Studio?
We met at a party. I was managing a video games animation company at the time. And Ben had just recently, about a year, moved to Portland.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, let me help you. I have friends that work at Leica. I knew you wanted to work at Leica. And then we were friends, and then we fell into a relationship. And at one point I was like, why am I working for this company, making them a ton of money, and you're making other tons of money? It's like, we start our own company, we can, make more art. The problem is we're both on the autism spectrum, so we're not really good at the networking and schmoozing aspect of it. Yeah. So we have amazing people like Sean that also like our manager kind of. So like he makes sure we get paid, and he's good to us. So he's always been like one of our best clients, and we're very grateful.
You guys are like an ultimate dream team at this point. And honestly, like just the communication that I've had with you guys over the last several weeks leading up to this, like that's the impression I've got. You guys are completely easy to speak with, easy to work with, and that's my vibe. I as easy breezy as possible is, that's the way to be. Work smart, not hard. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
But yeah, looking at you guys' work on the Mariana Cross segment, how did you guys get into contact at all with this? Because there was a treatment at one point done for a Mariana Cross music video, and I'm assuming the budget restraints or just the time and the logistics of it were not coming together, and that maybe some of those ideas got repurposed and put into what we got to see in Right Here, Right Now.
Yeah, I'll tell. So Alex Ross Perry also went to NYU Film School, and around the same time as me, but I think he was a couple years younger, and I never really knew him. But my girlfriend, who's Liz Tunkel, she knew him well, and they were good friends. And so like she actually worked on some Ghost stuff first. She worked on this Ghost pop-up at the Whiskey A Go Go. Do you know about that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So she's a production designer, so she helped like design all that and get all that stuff put in there. And she also did the music video with like the priest. What song is that? You know what I'm talking about? Where he's like driving his like Hummer, and he's like,
GZ Knows Me.
Yeah. So she production designed that for Alex too. And so we did a very small thing in that Ghost pop-up. There was like a little Scooby-Doo-esque animation of Papa Neil and stuff. And she actually had a different artist draw it, but then I just like did a very simple like effects of like grain and stuff, and we put it on a TV at the pop-up, so it kind of looked like it wasn't just a still piece of art, even though it really was. It just kind of had a little bit of movement on it. And then basically Alex was like, hey, do you know an animator? We need to make an animated music video. Because my understanding, again, I don't know all the inner workings of Alex and Tobias in this movie, but I think that they were trying to shoot reenactments, and they were talked about doing a Mariana Cross live action video. But like the story that Tobias had in his mind of all these locations and all this stuff, it was just going to be really, really expensive and hard to do. And so they were like, maybe that'll be a good chance to do something animated, So Alex reached out to us, and we were like, oh yeah, this sounds great. Let's get into it. So then we had a call with Tobias where he kind of like went through all the ideas he had for it, and like, yeah, there was definitely some movie reference talk. I don't actually even remember. I remember he referenced something from Pulp Fiction that I don't even remember off the top of my head. But yeah, he was definitely pulling a bunch of references and putting it all together. And so then we kind of went away with that, made an animatic, which is like scribbly bad drawings that are set to this video. And then so then like, you get a little bit of feedback or whatever. And then finally you're like, this is the plan. It looks really bad, but we have a map of like what the shots are and what the story is. And then that's when we start iterating the designs, and they were clear, Alex and Tobias, that they wanted it to feel like it was from the 60s and be this kind of Fritz the Cat, Scooby-Doo kind of hybrid, that was right up Ben and Xilia's alley, and they really took that and ran with it.
I love that you brought up Fritz the Cat, because Ralph Bakshi I love his work too a lot.
Yeah.
I think he's a legend, and I don't think he gets enough recognition, if I'm being honest. And just see that, combined with what you guys, brought to the table in terms of like, hey, here's a Ralph Bakshi and like a Scooby-Doo-esque thing, because we all know like the joke with Ghost is that, oh, it's just Scooby-Doo chase music. And everybody that saw this movie and saw this sequence, we were just like, aha, yes, that, you did the thing.
So I love that. They Ghost embraced that idea, right? Like they're able to like kind of look at themselves and be like, oh, the fans would love this. Like, let's give it to him.
Yeah. And that's the best part about Tobias, is that I don't care what anybody says, that man has his finger on the pulse with what his fans are into and what they're saying or, thinking, because it's not just a coincidence. You know what I mean? Like just seeing how this all came together is not a coincidence, and y'all knocked it out of the park. Whenever he was kind of pitching you guys the idea, were y'all allowed to have any kind of not to say like input, but like creative freedom as far as like certain things you wanted to throw in there, maybe like for your own little like references? Like,
oh yeah, definitely.
That's good.
I mean, his idea, like he had it loosely there, but it wasn't like he knew all the shots or the order or the sequences. He was just kind of like, it was a while ago, but I'm pretty sure he was basically like, it starts off, and like he's in this Whiskey Go. She comes out of the Whiskey Go-Go. He knew he wanted to pick up right where that Kiss the Go-Go video left off, and then he's kind of like chasing after her. I remember in that first animatic, we had him a little scarier, and he's like, he's not so creepy. Like, let's tone him down a little bit, make him like a little bit more just like a puppy dog who just like loves her or whatever. So we kind of like made those adjustments, but a lot of it was just like, I don't know, listening to the music and figuring out like, okay, how do we fill this part? And what's something that's like, he was just like, Graveyard would be cool, Hollywood Cemetery, like this kind of stuff, and like Laurel Canyon House. And so it's kind of like this scramble of stuff. And you're like, how do you build all that into a story, have it all flow together? You know what I mean? And like, and have it hit all the marks so that at the right time that like goes to the music too. So it was definitely a collaboration in that way. And he was like, once he basically had that conversation, we went away, made the animatic. Besides the note about him being creepy, there weren't a lot of other notes that I remember. So it was basically, we got the pentagrams wrong on one shot. They were like upside down. So that was a note. But besides that, it felt like he definitely gave us the power to kind of take the idea and run with it and flesh it all out. And yeah, so tons of those little moments and everything were things that we came up with. And there was a lot of back and forth between Ben and Xilia and I, and like they had a different idea for the Hollywood sign. That wasn't a part of Tobias's pitch, I don't think. And then so they had an idea for it, and I was like, that's cool, but what if we do it this way? So then, everything feeds everything, and then in the end, you get the video you get,
Right. How long did it take to put together? Like, if you had to give a rough estimate as far as like hours or days?
A very short time.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, the first one, we told them it would be like a month. I think it was like 2 months, but luckily we had a good. We had a good amount of time, so it didn't really matter that we were really late, but we were definitely like a month late on the first one. And then the second one, it was like, okay, we can't, this one, they actually have a hard release date and they're sticking to it, and we can't be a month late. So
yeah, it's wild. I just had Alex on 3-ish weeks ago, maybe 4. And he and I were talking about how we could not get over the turnaround time on the entire movie, like, because obviously there's a lot to go into it. There's stuff that he shot, there's stuff that you guys did, and there's stuff that his 30 unit guy did with the live stuff, and putting it all together and editing it and putting the finished product out. I'm taking the words right out of his mouth because it came out of mine too. It's almost unheard of in the industry to have that quick.
No, it's true. That was all super fast. But for our standpoint, because normally music videos, they don't think about it or that they want it until like way too late, and then they're always like, oh yeah, we should have a video in like 2 weeks, like let's get someone to make that. And then it's like that's like with no concept or anything, and there's no planning, and then some of that time you have to talk about what's the budget and like what's the idea, and then it's okay, now we have a week and a half left to actually make this thing, and so it often goes like that, and it's like a little bit of a nightmare. But this time, because it was a part of this movie, yeah, like as a movie, they were going super fast. But for a music video, it was more time than you're used to, like where you could be a month late and nobody really minded or cared because they were still in the timeline of the movie. It wasn't and so they luckily thought about needing this way in advance. So we had like a long time to to do it and then hand it in. And then it wasn't like we handed it in at the buzzer. Like it was all very comfortable. So that was great. This next one was tighter. This next one was
very tight. If we weren't fans, I don't know if it would have gotten done. Like we had flooding. We were working off of a solar generator for a little bit. Like all of Vermont flooded. So we pulled a 48-hour shift to get it in on time.
I mean, Ben and Xilia I feel like you could do a whole podcast about that. They have a very interesting living situation where they basically I'll tell the beginning, you guys take over at any time you want. But this is my understanding, is that they worked a lot. They were working like 5 different animation jobs at once over the years, basically slowly killing themselves, but also making lots of money. They were slowly saving up all their money. And then they were like, we have this dream and they were like living in a trailer park for like $200 a month. And they were just like, all their expenses were very low. They were working like 20 jobs and they saving up money. And they're one day we're going to buy a house in cash, have no expenses, and then we can be like retired and have no bills. And like and again, I think that's maybe some of the autism thing of just like we don't like bills and worrying about this stuff, and like then we'll be free like once that day comes. So they whatever, I'll save some stuff. They bought a house, they didn't like it, they sold it. Then they got over here. Now they decided to buy this like beautiful stretch of like 7 acres or something of land. 24 acres of land on a Vermont lake, and but they like took all their money basically to buy all this sweet land. So they just put this tiny little house that an Amish guy built them. And they live in this tiny house where like when you Zoom with them, it's like their bed is behind them, their desk is there. And then they don't have a real toilet in there. They have like, sawdust and stuff. And so they were like basically, just like animating in this like tiny little box that's like on this 24 acres of beautiful land. And it's just like there's a lot. Their internet often goes out, and there's floods, and it's like a wild living off the grid.
Wilderness.
Yeah, so that's Ben Xilia in a nutshell.
Well, our goal is to have an artist residency space on our land, and we have like a second little tiny house on there that we're paying off right now. And there's a study that came out that like 83 or 86%, I can't remember the exact number, of people who are in artistic fields come from wealth. And so but in my experience is very different growing up. And just to be able to give people 3 months paid, we pay for meals, we pay for everything, to come out and just have that lived experience of what is it like to just have unlimited time to create without having the stress of bills and like to go through what we had to go through to get to where we are. So our kind of life mission is to work hard to make that happen, make art we want to love, work on projects for people we love that maybe don't have like the budget, that something like Ghost has, or like Marvel, for example. Right. But like, I mean, even just with Ghost, there's so many fans that have reached out to us that have like shared their art. Like one person was like, I've never drawn, but I wanted a picture of your art of Nihil on the wall. So I was inspired to do it. And like, that's just so like motivational. I think Tobias does that with all his stuff, because I see so many fans learning a song, or like what kind of like amazing transformational power that has to put good in the world and help people feel connected. So that's like kind of our life mission. Yeah. Have what you need, and the rest is, make the world a better place.
I love that so much. I'm a musician, so like that speaks to me big time. I've played music for 30 years of my life, and if I had the resource and the unlimited time, without having to worry about like a day job or, bills and stuff like that, all I would ever do would be probably podcasting, creating music, and hanging out with my family. That's all I want to do, So that's amazing. I love that so much. Just to know where you guys came from and all the hard work that you've put into what we're rolling into right now is the Future as a Foreign Land segment here, because this was, like you guys said, a crunch time, because I remember just speaking with you guys over the last couple of weeks, working 20 hours a day on this thing, and it's like, how do you sleep? And it's like, no, micro naps probably, but how did the treatment come about for this one? As far like, did you guys kind of have the same process as Mariana Cross, or was there just like, hey, here's an outline, go for it?
This one, Tobias had less of a clear story in his mind. Like when we had this call at first, he was like kind of just describing what the song was about and like more impressionistic and like, about these different ideas. And then I was kind of like, I think we should find a story here so it doesn't get too just, some music videos don't have a story and you just kind of cut to a bunch of stuff and it makes sense impressionistically. But I felt like the last one was such a kind of story, and it felt like this one should just kind of pick up and be a story. So that was the challenge, was like, how do you take these kind of more abstract ideas and like turn them into like a story? And so we kind of, over the course of this like Zoom call that I had with them, we kind of were, I was like, how about this? And he'd be like, no. I'm like, how about this? And he was like, I don't know. And then eventually we kind of like, okay, we got this idea where like, because I had some of these ideas in my head while listening to the song of like, it's kind of what it sounds like, but like them being together in the flames and stuff like that. And then his idea was like, maybe he goes and plays music with his friends. I was like, well, what about them and the flames? Like, how are we going to bring all this together? And so basically, like, yeah, that came up with this idea that like maybe he is on acid, maybe not. We didn't want to like show it too explicitly since there's whatever. Lots of young Ghost fans out there. I don't want to set a bad example, but perhaps he is on acid.
I'll tell you, that is the impression I got. So like, good job.
Perhaps not. Sometimes you can have experiences a number of ways. So maybe, but
emotional experience.
Yeah, but there's the idea that he's kind of like having this emotional experience and seeing these different flashes and like imagining these different worlds while being in this like house in Malibu at Mr. Saltarian's house. Yeah, I was like, who's Mr. Saltarian? He goes, he's his friend. I was like, okay, great. So yeah, and then the same thing, kind of like I kind of had that conversation, talk about it with Ben and Xilia. They have some ideas. Then I did the animatic and kind of planned out the shots, and then we had some back and forth, and Ben and Xilia have some good ideas and like, hey, what about this? Or like, let's see this. Or like I think that I like those parts where all the nameless ghouls kind of like harmonize together, and I feel like that was a Ben and Xilia pitch. They definitely got in there a couple times. And then they love hiding Easter eggs everywhere. They know more ghost lore than I do, and they're like, can we hide this over here? Can we hide this here? I'm all for Easter eggs. I just want to make sure like the story is first and foremost, and like that's, you follow it, and an Easter egg is like something buried in the corner for the fans, but isn't like gonna like steal focus too much, So right. I think in the end we landed in a great place. Personally, I'm very happy with how it turned out. I think it looks really cool, and it's interesting because it was like the same style as the other video, but it's true, it feels very different, somehow. Yeah,
I was gonna say that actually. Mariana Cross was very action chasing. This one was very reflective, dramatic in a way. My interpretation. And please feel free to be like, dude, you're wrong. my interpretation.
Of art.
Yeah.
Everybody's interpretation.
I don't think there's any way for someone to tell you you're wrong.
I'm just being silly. But like, my interpretation is like, he's down, goes to the payphone, calls Saltarian. It's like, I just need some time, with my band. I want to go jam. I want to, maybe or maybe not take substances. We'll just say that, and just kind of, chill. But I love that it did find its way into playing into the lyricism, because like the song is both a hope for a better future and also rooted in Papa Nil's love for Sister Imperator. And I loved the juxtaposition of both visual aspects of that, where he's not only seeing the world as, we know a lot of awful things have happened in the last 50 to 60 years. And speaking into specifically like, 1984, like this is like going into Cold War era and going to 2024, which, 40 years later, it's like we're still seeing a lot of, terrible, awful things in this world, but there's always a glimmer of hope. And I liked the fact that he was kind of expressing that, however, also expressing in those same lyrics, and I will hold you for the minute it takes, talking to Sister, where it's like all this bad stuff might be happening, but we would have each other, and, we would be okay with each other. That's kind of the thing that I saw with Neil. Neil had a heart. He loved that woman. Like this is the song where I'm like, man, that dude, we might see him as this, car ruining, sharding papa, but at the end of the day, this man really loved her and has a good heart. I think the video was fantastic in portraying like that, which as far as visually speaking, I enjoyed the spotlight being kind of like the, the papa eye, if you will, because every papa has the contact in the eye. And that's how I saw that. And then the quote acid trip, maybe not, of him seeing all these potential futures and having that realization as he's sitting there singing this song in the studio. I also liked the ghouls changing a lot. The futuristic kind of utopia spot towards the end. I'm not saying that this is exactly what had in mind, but seeing the pyramids as their masks or whatever, that was giving very Daft Punk to me.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was.
I think Tobias has mentioned like the Devo suits as a reference, but we obviously didn't want to just make it the Devo suits. We made it our own, right?
Yeah. I guess I got Daft Punk because like on their Alive 2007 tour, they performed at that giant pyramid, so like that, and like all the colors and like the light,
That's cool. What's funny? Yeah, I just saw randomly Kraftwerk. Someone had a free ticket and they gave it to me, and they had like all these light up suits, and I sent that as a reference as well. But then we were like, that's too hard to do. We're not going to do that. So I don't know how much of that.
Single lines like plaid
lights on them.
We did a once for the Scottish guy. He's like, "Can you give me my plaid?" And I was like, "No."
Yeah, no plaid.
It stays in place.
But yeah, I think your interpretation seems spot on, Richie. I don't think there's anything. I think the only one thing I would say, which isn't, I think in the song, which is just sort of like, to me, it's sort of about this horrible things might happen, but if you make it through that, then you might get to this utopia future, and there might be something good waiting on the other end. And like, it's not just about having each other through a terrible thing, but also that you might make it through to the other side, and it might not always be terrible things happening all around you.
Right. Yeah, because like the foreign land aspect of the future is a foreign land. It's like, we don't know. You know what I mean? Right. So like that glimmer of hope is always there. And I think we all are hoping for that utopia ending. So
totally. And I think another interesting thing Tobias mentioned on my call with him was like, the end of the Right Here, Right Now, they play this future as a foreign land, and they show montage of all the horrible things that have happened over the years. I guess like since then, he was like saying that at first it was too gruesome that like made you want to throw up, and he was just like, we have to dial this back, and like we don't actually want to see the worst of what humanity is capable of. It's too much. I think there was like that idea of like, let's show that without it being just gross and like indulgent and like too much,
Right.
So it's like more of like a poetic version. Like I feel like our regime and everything, it's kind of just, it's a little bit abstract. We're not watching like people get shot in the head or anything,
No, and it definitely puts the point across, just visually speaking, like to reference another Ghost song, the world is on fire, so to speak, as that is happening in the background. That point comes across big time, and I think that's one of the most weirdly charming aspects is that like it's, you don't have to see all of the physical violence, but that message is very front and center,
Yeah. I was gonna say too, Ben and Xilia. One of the ideas, because I knew I wanted to change the look of the ghouls and the different things, and Ben and Xilia had the idea for the horse mask, and sometimes they will send me just like a 5-page essay about like why it's the horses, and I'm like, look, it's like, oh my god, it's just like, well, and furthermore, the symbolism points to this thing over here, and it's like this long screed, and then I'm like, and then usually I like cut it down to 2 sentences, and then I go, "What do you guys think of these horse heads?" and send it to Tobias and the label, and they go, "Cool, looks good." But I don't you know,
that's autism.
I was gonna say, like, well, go into the horse thing, like, because I thought that was
that's why I thought this might be the time to go into it. If anyone's gonna be into it.
Yeah,
I mean, I think some of the horses was which I always have dyslexia, so which
image?
Which image?
Yeah.
So kind of linked to which image.
You're riding behind me on a pale white
horse,
Yep.
which was representing of the last horseman of the apocalypse. He rides a pale white horse. So that's why we changed it. So when we had it, the regime, we had it as the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, but then we pulled in from that song. And we also pulled in from some t-shirt art and some poster art that's not really a poster for the band, but we think is relevant to the band, that ties into a t-shirt that they did, which we feel might be a clue to something. It may not be. You can believe that. I don't know. Because, we don't speak to Tobias personally. I just have autism and look at patterns and stories. So one thing that jumped out to me. We had another thing that didn't get included, that we included some of that lore into, that we may, I don't know, Sean's doing a really cool director's what would you call it, Sean? Like a director?
Oh yeah, I was gonna maybe do a director's commentary where you could kind of see those animatics potentially. I have to make sure they're cool with that, obviously, and I'll ask them. But if you could show the animatics and then kind of talk over them and talk through some of the whatever process of kind of what we're doing now, but in real time to the video. You know, you've seen a director's commentary track. You're a cinephile. But I feel like you guys not only had the horse mask, but you had these patches and all the different.
Oh yeah.
So with,
you know.
You want to talk about this? Yeah, sure. I'm happy to talk about it.
Is that top secret? I said too much already.
No, I think we're fine. But for the triangle symbols, we had the different elements, and they've already been linked to the ghouls in some forums and fan theories and things, and that basically each one, it represents different earth, air, fire, water, all these things, and then that we linked also to the 4 horsemen and the 4 symbols of the 4 horsemen. So we had I'm trying to remember the exact order, but it's, I believe it's Conquest is the first one. And that was the bassist, and it was a bow and arrow. And then there was, second one was a lead guitar, which is, I believe, War. And then that was a sword. Then we also had the scales, which was representative of famine, and that was the keyboardist. And then finally was Death. And that was the drums that was represented by a skull. So those 4 symbols, and all with the different elemental shaped triangles, sometimes with lines through them, depending on the symbol. So that was all tied in there.
That is so cool.
Yeah. I got another thing that's funny too is that Ben really wanted to work in the clock from the Right Here Right Now, Instagram promotions. Yeah. And so at first it was it's supposed to be he wanted it to be the clock tower, and I was I think that's stealing from the focus of this is actually a clock tower that or not a clock, but a light that shines, and the regime can watch you and whatever. So, and then at the very end, we were running out of time, and we were can we have this bomb land before that explosion goes off instead of just the explosion when they blow up? You remember that part? And so and the last moment, after not sleeping for days, Ben finally got his clock in on the bomb.
Yeah. It's the doomsday clock, because listening to the song, I felt when he says "hold you for the minute it takes," that's the doomsday clock and the minute. Where are we on the clock right now?
Exactly.
We're pretty.
My interpretation was more the bomb's going off and it's time's up. This time, time's over. Here's the clock.
It's essentially the last.
Again, there's no wrong interpretations out here. But yeah, so there's lots of little things like that hidden around.
And specifically that also referenced, because somebody pointed out in the comments that the Right Here Right Now clock was, I believe, 2 minutes to midnight, which is a reference to Iron Maiden, and then that was also a reference to the Doomsday Clock in some way.
Yeah, it's all it all goes back to the Doomsday Clock.
Yeah, and then Dance Macabre, the one lyric, "You'll see me here in the chime close to midnight," that. Yeah. I love all of this so much. This is really cool to hear. There's
interconnectedness. If you look at past reference to past albums and past movies. Just Dance Macabre, I think there's Rocky Horror Picture Show in there.
Carrie.
There's Carrie, just all these awesome movies.
Oh, Dirty Dancing.
Dirty Dancing. Of course.
Yeah, a lot of different stuff in there.
That's where I typically will pick up on is like film reference, just because like I've said a billion times on today's show and probably many other episodes, like big film dork here, and seeing the Iron Maiden reference also, like musically speaking, like that's because, obviously like Tobias is a huge Maiden fan. I like seeing more than just like film influence. I like seeing stuff pulled from like maybe musicals or the other bands, things like that. So all these references put in this music video, they're fantastic. And also just, the elements, relating to the ghouls, like that is something I was sitting there like, is that a thing? Maybe is that, I don't know if that's a thing. I'm so happy to hear that that's absolutely a thing. That's I hope more people picked up on that. And if you didn't pick up on that, you done learned something today. As we say here in the South, you done learned something, kid. So.
Each element also related to each conquest, or each part of the Four Horsemen. So there was I believe there was, I'm trying to remember which conquest was, but the second one was war, was fire, and then the last one, earth, was definitely death. So that was, they all tied in.
And sometimes it's hard when you only have a month, like you want to cram so much other stuff in, but you kind of have to limit how much you're cognitively thinking about creating something versus just starting and jumping in and doing it right away.
That's another thing I wanted to ask. I'm so happy you mentioned like a time frame. Did you guys start working on this like as the movie was releasing, or like how far ahead did you have time to work on this? Like, did you guys get to hear?
It was a little bit before the movie came out, but not even too much. I remember they sent me as a reference like that end credits of the movie before the movie was out, just to see like. That's kind of like a different music video for The Future is a Foreign Land, of like the credits and like the kind of visuals that go to the song,
Gotcha.
So I remember that was sort of like they had to send that because I hadn't seen it. I did go to see the movie like in LA with like the record label people and stuff. They had like a LA premiere, but it was fun and it was cool. But I was like, I wish I had seen it with the Ghost fans, like in a full theater, and like I saw like all these videos and stuff, and it felt like a pretty different experience to have like. All the ghost heads going wild instead of like the LA record executives.
Yeah, we went and saw it in the closest theater to us was in Montreal, Canada. So we had to go to Canada. We didn't have to, but we did. Yeah, and it was amazing. Yeah. Like we sat and just, got to see it with fans, and we got to dress up, and it was super fun. Like it was our first, we don't even like going to concerts that much, or like we always wait for streaming at home because just we don't like social environments as much. But no, it was worth it. I would totally have, if it wasn't already sold out, like for us to get a ticket was like a challenge, but we did it. We got it. And it was awesome to get to see it with the fans.
Yeah, it was. There's some cool costumes too.
We have some photos on our Instagram of just some of the fans. Like, but there's so many people dressed up so cool. We talked to so many people, and I think what I really love about like the community is like I think this is the first interview we've ever really done. Sean's like, "You want to do an interview? You never want to do an interview," and I was like, "No," but the fans are so amazing. Yeah. Like they're so like I said, people reached out to us on Instagram, but just meeting people in person, and everybody's just so kind. And everybody's so welcoming. And it's interesting because there's these two very different factions. Like there's these people like the music from the beginning. And there's people like, I made a Taylor Swift bracelet that says Ghost on it. Do you want one? At the show. And but the beautiful thing is it's bringing these two really diverse, divergent groups of people together, kind of uniting around this like musician and his ideas. And whether you love the first album, the second album, the third album, or you love the lore, you hate the lore, like you still love what's being created in some aspect. And like, I think that's kind of unifying, and that's really beautiful to us. So
I couldn't have said it better myself, really. Like I think that's probably my favorite part of doing GonstFM, really, is connecting with people like yourselves and other content creators, because at the end of the day, we're all fans. There's no wrong way to love this band. And meeting everybody like at the theater, total strangers are not strangers in this fandom. You see a Ghost fan and that's family, that's how I see it anyway.
Yeah. We were saying like Ghost was like the band we needed when we were like antisocial, drawing at home in our bedrooms, back in the day. Like, And just to have that and see like other people have like that outlet, that creative outlet, that community outlet. Like it's so much more than just music or like the lore, or it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of the power of the internet is fun. I think Alex Ross Perry first said that he's like, Ghost is like the biggest band you've never heard of. It's like I hadn't really heard of them that much before, but now that I have, you're like, this band's huge, and like their fan base is wild. And once you start looking and you notice, like I was just in Las Vegas for a friend's birthday, and I saw someone at the poker table wearing a Ghost sweatshirt, and it's like, you know, you start to see Ghost fans hidden amongst us everywhere, but you gotta know what you're looking for.
Yeah. We're everywhere.
Yeah,
we really are. So I want to thank you guys so much for coming on and hanging out with me today. Like, for this being your first interview, like that's awesome. I'm very honored to have been able to speak with you guys, because I think your contribution to this film and to this band's now history is amazing. Like I hadn't seen anybody do something like this in a movie with a concert aspect in a while, and it was refreshing. Honestly, it was refreshing to see traditional 2D work. It was refreshing to see a project that not only took in what we all like as fans, but you know what you liked as fans. Because I often think sometimes there are creators that don't get to have their own voice. They just kind of have to put pen to paper and like, you know, be a machine. But it's good to see fans of this band working with the man himself and helping create something very memorable. This is a modern cult classic. I called this on my review of this film. It's a modern day cult classic film, like as far as music goes. And your part in this was literally no small contribution. It's one of the biggest joys of watching this movie. And The Future is a Foreign Land is a much needed and great follow-up to that piece of work. So thank you guys so much for giving us something really badass in this universe.
Well, yeah, thanks so much for having us.
Yeah,
Thanks
for
for
sure.
having us.
Do you guys have any projects coming up that you would like to plug before we bounce today?
I can tell you just very loosely, you know, one of the things that we haven't talked about at all, but I wrote a feature-length animated movie that I've been wanting to make very slowly and in making very slowly, just out of like doing jobs for documentaries and stuff, and then saving up some money and then paying Ben and Xilia and a few other people to help me animate this movie and like try to finish it. And I'm excited about that. It's just not going to come out anytime too soon. It might be a year or two away, but if you follow, you know, Awesome Modest on Instagram, you know, there will be word about it there. But I'm excited for that to be released one day, and I think it's looking really cool. And yeah, Ben and Xilia are doing some great work on it, and we have probably like 4 other people working on it right now, and they're all really talented too. And yeah, that's something I'm very excited and proud of. It's just going to be a slow slog. But and the other thing that I would plug, which is totally different and unrelated, but it's just like my personal YouTube channel, which is just Dirty Sean with a U, DURTYSEAN. And to me, that's just like a place where it's not really about jobs. It's not about like working for Marvel or this band. It's just about, hey, I just want to make a little documentary about my neighbor. Or I just want to do this little video. And it feels like it's back to like why I started making movies and just making fun things just to put on YouTube. And I wish I had more time to do more of those, but I would like to make a video about Ben and Xilia and their setup in Vermont too at some point. So I feel like maybe that'll be on the YouTube channel at some point. But yeah, it's sort of documentaries, animations, comedy. It's sort of like a grab bag. It's not really trying to find, you know, one niche of some audience and capitalize. It's just supposed to be a creative freedom of like, what do I want to do, you know? So
right.
That's those are the 2 things I would plug, I guess. But how about you, Ben and Xilia?
We're still hustling.
Yeah.
Eventually, I'd say I think we're so close. We're like another year away, and then we'll have the freedom to do more work like Sean's project, and you know, devote more time to something like that, and not have to be like, oh, we have to build a road. Oh, we need running water. These kind of things.
But that's what's cool. Like the Ghost videos, Ben and Xilia were working for me full time on this feature, and then the Ghost videos came up, and it was kind of like, all right, now we're going to take you off the feature, and we can just do Ghost for like this month or whatever, which turned out to be like 2 months, and then more months after that when we did the second one. But now it's like now we're getting back into the feature, and just sort of navigating, jumping around to what needs to get done, and the balance of doing all these different things at once.
I'm going to make it easy for everybody out there listening. So if you would like to follow Sean's YouTube channel, if you'd like to follow Ben and Xilia on social media, all of their links will be found in the show notes below. You can scroll up, click it, and follow them, because I enjoy your work. I enjoy your work outside of this project in particular. And I'm looking forward to more from all of you, because you've made a fan out of me. And I know for a fact you've made a fan out of everybody that has seen this film.
Thanks so much, Richie. I really appreciate it. Or Papa X, rather.
I think that might be the first time that somebody who has been a guest on my show has actually referred to me by my radio name. Yeah.
I do make history.
There you go. I only say it just because the people in our fan page named me that forever ago, so it just kind of stuck, and it's all.
Cool. I like it. Another fun side story. I don't know if squeeze one in at the buzzer, but
go for it.
My friend and animator John Howard Thompson, who usually sits with me in my office and is also working on the feature, is also a very skilled musician, and so. I heard somewhere, I think Liz told me, or maybe Tobias, somebody said that in the Kiss the Go-Goat video, they weren't playing the right parts at different times, and Tobias was like, oh man, that's not the right way that's supposed to be played or whatever. Uh-oh. And so we really wanted to get it right. So we should give a shout out to John over here.
Shout out John.
Literally, I shot John playing, and he'd figure out, and he'd play every single guitar part, and then he'd play every single bass part, and then he'd play the drums and all the drum fills, and exactly so that Ben and Xilia had this perfect reference of how to play every single part of that song.
Every time you see an instrument, it's amazing.
It's John.
Yep.
I'm so happy you brought that up too, because that is a thing that I noticed. Being a musician myself, that is something that irks me anytime I see it. If it's off by any way, I'm like, oh, it's just one of those
Yeah, so it's pretty cool to have an animator who also can just listen to the song and figure out how to play every single part on every single instrument, and the keyboard parts he did too. So I think, and it's pretty funny because I thought that would be funny to release too, if John playing all these different parts just in the office, and
or Liz drinking.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Reference for the drinking part.
Yeah, that was very specific. There's a part where he drinks water like this, and but the way that you really drink water, where you put your mouth around it and stuff, doesn't really look that exciting. So I was like, why don't we bend reality a little bit and have the liquid go into his mouth? And we're we tried to film a reference, and we keep spilling water all over ourselves. This isn't possible. So then I called in my girlfriend Liz, who also worked on those ghost projects, and so I was like, hey, can you drink this with your mouth open so we can see it? So I just filmed it on my phone, and she pulled it off, and that's why
she did a great job. She was pro.
Awesome.
So yeah, you can see it takes a village to make a video, and you need a lot of references. You need a lot of but I will say, you should appreciate how normally when I do stuff, I build out a much bigger team. And Ben and Xilia are very much we don't want to work with other people, or we don't want to split up the backgrounds because it gets too confusing. They kind of have a system, so that we're going to do everything, and we're going to work 20 hours a day. And I'm like, are you sure that doesn't?
Well, Sean, you've seen our files. What happens when we send it to you? Everybody cries.
Yeah, their files are very it's an alien language that only they can decipher. So basically, they take on way more than most animators would ever take on. On most of these projects, there's background artists, and then there's character designers, and then there's animators, and then there's compositors, and you would have different people with all those specialties. And Ben and Xilia are kind of like a Swiss Army knife who can do all those things. The one thing they can't do is delegate, I guess, but they have all the other skills.
I think the one thing was just because we set up. It was quite difficult setting it up with the backgrounds the way we had them, and just layering them. And
they're extremely.
It would have taken, for our autistic selves, it would have taken us longer to explain to someone how we set up the file. There's 10,000 nodes,
right?
And just to crank through and do it.
No, and I just think it's impressive that you've built all those skills of being really good at compositing. Most animators say they can composite, but they really can't, and then they do a pass, and you're like, what the hell is this? I have to redo all this. So I think that Ben and Xilia actually do have kind of a mastery over most all the steps of the process. right? So it's pretty cool. But also I feel bad for them because then they work like 20 hours a day and they're like,
but then the bonus is we get that paycheck and we can, like, you know, starving artists, they won't give you a loan because you don't have any credit or good credit. So if we wanted to dream, we had to sacrifice a little bit and just make it happen. And that's how we plow through making the videos. You just sacrifice a little bit and make it happen. At the end, now we're at the other side of it. And it's like, now we're here. It's awesome.
It's like that's what they say, when you give birth, you forget how painful it was, so you do it again. That's like, making a music video.
Yeah, we remember this time. This one, we were like, this is the last time we can do this. But, like, we made something really beautiful as a team.
Yeah, you made a fan out of Richie, so that's not nothing. Well, thank you so much for having us. This was a lot of fun, and I also have been sort of pleasantly surprised by this ghost community to be pulled into, and how diehard the fans are, and how just like the fan art and the costumes people have. It's pretty cool to see. Yeah, I feel like it's a rare thing to see, like, a fan base that's that big and that kind of like diehard in that way, right?
Yeah, I've said this before a million times, but this fan base is something like I've never seen or been a part of before, and I'm glad to be on this roller coaster with everybody.
Yeah, because we made that video also with Ben and Xilia for Kirk Hammett from Metallica, and it was reposted on the Metallica site and stuff. But I think most people were like, yeah, okay, whatever. But like the Ghost fans are all like commenting and being like, this is great, what's this? And like, it's just like way more involved fan base than like, even that when you think of that band, you think they're like one of the biggest bands on the planet, but the fan base is not as invested, it doesn't seem.
No, we follow our people around. We definitely do.
Yeah.
And and I mean that in a supportive way. Like, we definitely follow your projects around and want to see you succeed elsewhere too, not just in Ghost, but
elsewhere. Well, yeah, I appreciate that. Well, stay tuned. Just keep the momentum going in a couple of years when Rip Off comes out, and we'll see you at the theater.
Oh, absolutely. And I was going to say, anytime you guys want to come back on in the future, you're always more than welcome. I love having people on. I love talking to other artists, other creators. It's just something I do this anyway, I do this in my day-to-day life. It's just, we have microphones in front of us today.
Yeah, totally. Well, it was a lot of fun. Thanks a lot for having us. And we'll talk to you next time.
Awesome. Sean, Ben, Xilia, thank you guys again so much.
Thank you. Bye.
And once again, if you'd like to follow Sean, Ben, and Xilia on social media, I'll have links provided in the show notes below. For past, present, and future episodes of GonstFM Off Air, you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. You can leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. You can leave a rating and comment on individual episodes on Spotify. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, leave a comment below. Click the like button on the video. Consider subscribing to the channel. And if you do subscribe, hit the bell for notifications for future episodes. If you would like to attend one of our monthly GonstFM Station Head radio rituals, if you would like to buy official GonstFM merchandise, or if you would like to join the official GonstFM Facebook group, GonstFam, all of these things can be found in the show notes below. And so, my dearest Gonslings, that brings today's episode to a close. Some of you I will see in Internet Land, and the rest of you I will see in GonstFam. Take care of yourselves, and remember, until next time, in Gonst, we tronst. I'm Richie. I'll see you next time.